Mama's not dead. She's under the floor. The piercing scream shattered the silence like a gunshot. Anna, just 6 years old, stood barefoot in the living room, her tiny body trembling as her voice cracked and echoed off the walls. Her big brown eyes were swollen from crying, and her chest heaved with every breath. Her stuffed rabbit dangled from one hand, muddy, soaked, forgotten. 3 uniformed officers stood frozen, unsure whether to rush to the child or brace for what was coming. A police cruiser idled outside, red and blue lights bouncing against the window panes of the quiet suburban home. The smell of fresh, lemon-scented cleaner still lingered in the air, trying but failing to hide something far more sinister. Anna screamed again, her voice more desperate. "She's under the kitchen floor, right there. My Uncle B did it. He did it." The father, Jordan Matthews, stood near the hallway arch, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. "Anna, stop. Stop this right now." "No," she cried, spinning to face him, tears streaming. "You didn't believe me. I saw it. You said I was dreaming, but I wasn't." Jordan's face twisted. He looked at the officers, then back at his daughter. "She's been confused since her mother left last week. It's grief. She saw too many crime shows, I think. Please, officers, she needs rest." Anna stomped her foot. "She didn't leave. You didn't even look. You just listened to Uncle Ray. He lied." Officer Martinez stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Sir, we received a 911 call from this address. The dispatcher confirmed it came from your landline. Your daughter said she witnessed a violent incident. Ish must have used it without me knowing," Jordan muttered. "She was upset. She's just a child." "We still need to check the premises," Martinez said. Jordan hesitated. His eyes darted toward the kitchen, the brand new tiles, the still-drying grout, the barely detectable scent of industrial cleaner that he now realized hadn't quite masked the truth. Then, a voice from the hallway. "Everything all right?" Uncle Ray, bulky and pale, entered wiping his hands on a towel. He stopped cold when he saw the officers. Anna pointed, her voice barely above a whisper now, yet sharp like broken glass. "He hit her." He yelled and hit her with the fireplace stick. Then he said she was making things hard for all of us. Martinez's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to stay where you are." Ray glanced at Jordan, then tried to smile. "It's a misunderstanding. Anna's a sweet kid, but she doesn't always." Officer Barnes had already moved into the kitchen. He knelt near the corner where the tiles changed pattern ever so slightly. He ran his hand along the edge, then took out a small UV flashlight. The light revealed faint traces-thin splashes that glowed a telltale purple under the beam. "Blood," Barnes said quietly. "Someone tried to clean it, but it's still here." Martinez radioed in, requesting emergency warrant clearance. Jordan watched the officers begin to peel back the tiles. First gently, then with urgency. The smell shifted. The air thickened. A dull, sour scent crept up death, undeniable and cold. Anna stood still, no longer crying, just watching. And then they saw it. Plastic sheeting. Torn. A pale hand, curled inward like it had been waiting to be found. Silence filled the room. Jordan stumbled backward, hitting the wall, then sliding down to the floor. His breath caught in his throat, his hands trembling. "Oh God, no, 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 no." Anna stared at him. "You said I was lying," she whispered. Jordan looked at Hera's daughter, his blood her face streaked with tears, her innocence shattered by something he couldn't bring himself to believe. His mouth opened, but no words came, just a broken sob. He crawled forward, clutching the edge of the couch for balance, then collapsed on his knees. "I thought Ray said she needed space, that she was overwhelmed, that she'd left with her sister. I believed him. I let her lie there." Anna watched as her father dissolved into tears, his chest convulsing with guilt. He buried his face in his hands, rocking, whispering his wife's name over and over. Officer Martinez cuffed Ray, reading him his rights, as the man stood motionless, sweat dripping down his forehead. Barnes covered the remains, stepping back with solemn reverence. "Anna knelt beside her father. She didn't leave, Daddy. She never left us." Jordan pulled her into his arms, sobbing harder now. "I'm sorry," he choked. "I should have listened. I should have protected her. I should have believed you." And for a moment, it wasn't the cold floor or the crime scene tape that screamed the loudest. It was the sound of a man breaking under the weight of his own regret. If this story touched your heart, Give it a like to show your support for Anna. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching with you. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. The coroner's van pulled away slowly, disappearing into the shadowy stretch of Maplewood Avenue, taking with it the final, silent truth of Cassandra Matthews. The cold wind rustled the trees overhead, scattering brittle leaves across the driveway as the last vestiges of normalcy blew away with them. Anna sat in the back seat of a police cruiser, wrapped in a thick blanket, her head leaning against the window. Her eyes were dry now, but only because her body had run out of tears. Her little hands clutched the corner of the blanket tightly, her rabbit tucked against her side. She stared blankly at the house she had once called home. Inside, the air reeked of bleach and something far older. Officer Barnes stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, surveying the tiles, now pried open like a wound. The scene team had placed evidence markers, the blood splatter under the fridge baseboard, the faint fingerprint smudges on the mop handle, and most tellingly the charred remains of a kitchen cloth found smoldered in the backyard fire pit. A clumsy attempt to destroy evidence. Detective Miriam Saunders stepped inside, late 40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense. She had seen enough over the years to know when a scene whispered guilt before words ever confirmed it. Barnes handed her a clipboard. Initial assessment. Victim suffered blunt force trauma, likely from the iron fireplace poker we found under the sink. No signs of struggle, but we won't know for sure until the autopsy report. Blood traces suggest attempted cleanup. Flooring replaced within the past 48 hours. All receipts and contractor records have conveniently gone missing. Saunders raised a brow. And the husband? Still in shock, crying nonstop. Didn't know anything apparently. And the brother-in-law? In custody. No confession yet. Keep saying it was an accident. Saunders moved through the house, her heels tapping softly on the hardwood. Family portraits lined the hallway, photos of Cassandra smiling. Anna on her birthday. Even one of the three of them, all grins and joy, just 2 years prior. Now, that same hallway smelled of grief. She entered the living room where Jordan Matthews sat on the edge of the couch, his head in his hands. His face was blotchy, clothes rumpled, knuckles scraped raw from clutching his fists too tightly. He looked up slowly when she stepped in. "Detective," he croaked. "Mr. Matthews," Saunders said gently but firmly, taking a seat across from him. "We need to talk about what happened. You told the officers earlier that your wife left the house a week ago?" He nodded weakly. "Ray told me she needed space, that she had a breakdown and went to her sister's. I was working nights. I didn't question it. I didn't think." She tilted her head. "But your daughter did. She told you what she saw." Jordan's eyes welled up again. "I know. Too didn't want to believe it. I thought it was just trauma, confusion. She was so young. How could she know?" "She knew," Saunders said. "She knew better than all of us." Jordan collapsed back against the couch, wiping his face. "She came to me 3 times. The last time, she was screaming. I yelled at her. I told her to stop talking nonsense. And all along, Cassie was just there, beneath our feet." Saunders let the silence linger. Then she said, "We have probable cause for murder. Your brother-in-law's story doesn't match the physical evidence. There's no indication your wife left voluntarily. No trace of her after that night. But we also need your cooperation. If he spoke to you after the fact, or left clues you ignored." Jordan shook his head vehemently. "He told me nothing, just that she was gone, that she'd snapped. Never saw a body. I didn't see blood. I didn't think. But you helped him renovate the floor?" Jordan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "He said it was a surprise for Cassie, that he wanted to fix the kitchen while she was gone. I thought he was trying to make things right. He said he wanted us to have a fresh start." Saunders wrote something in her notebook. "You'll need to stay available for further questioning, and you'll likely be called as a witness." Jordan nodded absently, but his gaze was distant, drawn toward the window, where Anna sat with Officer Barnes. She wasn't moving, just watching the house, the way a child watches a story end without knowing how to feel. That night, Anna stayed with Officer Martinez and his wife. They had no children of their own, but they made her a bed in the guest room, served her warm milk and grilled cheese, and didn't ask her to talk. She didn't say a word until bedtime. "Is Daddy going to jail too?" she asked quietly. staring at the ceiling. Martinez, sitting on the edge of the bed, hesitated. "No, sweetheart, not unless he did something wrong." Anna blinked slowly. "But he didn't listen. I told him everything." "He was scared," Martinez said gently. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes when they're scared." Anna hugged her rabbit close. "I'm scared too. But I still knew what was right." Martinez nodded, his throat tight. "That's what makes you brave." In the early morning hours, Jordan Matthews stood alone in the backyard. Smoke rose from the fire pit where his brother-in-law had tried to burn away the past. He stared into the ash, seeing the ghost of the woman he'd loved and failed. His hands trembled as he pulled something from his pocket, Cassandra's wedding ring. He didn't remember when she'd stopped wearing it, but it had been in Ray's toolbox, tucked beneath a rag. Jordan fell to his knees, clutching the ring in his palm, weeping into the silence. Not just for the woman beneath the floor, but for the words he hadn't believed, the child he had failed, and the sound of a truth that had screamed until it broke. The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of Officer Martinez's guest room, casting golden patterns across the wall. Anna lay still in bed, eyes open. Her rabbit nestled under her chin. She hadn't moved since she awoke, hadn't called out. She just listened. Downstairs, the smell of toast and eggs filled the house. Martinez's wife, Teresa, moved quietly in the kitchen, murmuring to her husband, who stood near the window, staring at the street where reporters were beginning to gather. "They'll be hounding him all week," Martinez muttered, arms folded. "He deserves some peace," Teresa said. "The girl especially." Martinez didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the stairs. "I'll check on her." Ugh. He found Anna sitting up in bed, still wrapped in the same blanket, her eyes heavy but alert. She didn't look at him when he entered. "Morning, sweetheart," he said softly, crouching to her level. "How are you feeling?" She was quiet a long time. Then, "Will they bury her?" "Yes," he said gently. "There'll be a funeral. You can go, if you want. We'll be there." Anna nodded slowly, then asked, "Will Daddy go?" Martinez hesitated. "He wants to. He misses her. Very much." She blinked at the wall. He cried, but it was too late. "Sometimes," Martinez said, "people don't understand what they have until it's gone." Anna turned to him, voice small but certain. "But I did." He nodded solemnly. "Yes, you did." Later that morning, Martinez drove Anna to the precinct. Detective Saunders had arranged a child advocate to sit with her, but Anna insisted on speaking alone. She didn't flinch under the fluorescent lights of the small interview room. She sat straight in the chair, legs swinging slightly above the floor. Saunders entered with a folder and a tape recorder. "Hi, Anna. My name is Detective Saunders. Do you remember me?" "Yes. You were in the house. You looked at the pictures." "That's right." Saunders sat across from her. "I want to ask you some questions, and you can stop any time. Is that okay?" Anna nodded. Saunders clicked the recorder. "Can you tell me what you saw the night your mother got hurt?" Anna's voice didn't shake. "I was in my room. I heard yelling. Loud. Like when Daddy and Mommy fight, but worse. Then I heard glass break. I crawled to the door. I looked through the crack." Saunders leaned in. "And what did you see?" "Uncle Ray had the fire poker. Mommy was crying. He hit her. She fell. He yelled something bad, said she ruined everything. Then he stopped talking. She didn't move anymore." Saunders wrote slowly. "Did your father see this?" Anna shook her head. "He wasn't home. He came later." "Did you tell him?" "Yes. The next morning, he said Mommy went to Aunt Michelle's, but I knew she didn't." "What happened then?" "Uncle Ray started making noise in the kitchen. He said he was fixing the floor, but he wasn't. He was hiding her. He used big plastic sheets. I heard him dragging." Saunders closed the folder. "You're a very brave girl, Anna." Anna looked up. "But I shouldn't have to be." Saunders blinked, then reached for her hand. "Number you shouldn't." Meanwhile, at the county jail, Ray Matthews sat alone in an interrogation room. He looked different now, disheveled, pale, with a slight tremor in his hands. He hadn't spoken since the arrest. Detective Barnes entered and laid a photo on the table. Cassandra's hand, peeking out from under the tile. Ray looked away. "Was it worth it?" Barnes asked. Ray said nothing. You killed your sister, Barnes said slowly. You buried her under her own kitchen. And for what? Money? Control? Ray finally looked up. She was going to ruin us. She wanted to leave. Take the kid. She said she'd tell the police about the loans, about everything. She was going to destroy our name. So you destroyed her instead? Ray's voice cracked. It was supposed to be an accident. I didn't mean Tosh pushed me. I pushed back, she hit the counter. Then she stopped moving. Barnes folded his arms. And the cover-up? The tiles? The lies? I panicked, Ray muttered. She was going to tell Jordan everything. About the business, the debts. I had to do something. Back at the precinct, Anna sat in the break room now, sipping apple juice. A few officers passed by, offering small smiles and gentle nods. Word had spread. The girl who exposed a killer. The girl who told the truth no one wanted to hear. Later that afternoon, Jordan was brought to the precinct. Not in cuffs, but pale and hunched. He asked to see Anna. Martinez brought him to the break room. Anna looked up, eyes unreadable. He knelt before her. Hi, pumpkin. She didn't answer. He tried again. I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I should have. I should have listened. Anna watched him. You said I was dreaming. I know. I was wrong. I didn't want to believe something so terrible could happen. Her voice came small. I needed you to believe me. I failed you, he whispered, but I promise I will never ignore your voice again. Anna's lips trembled. Then, slowly, she nodded, and for the first time in days, she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him. He clutched her like a lifeline, tears falling again, but this time, not just in grief, but in the fragile hope of redemption. Behind them, Martinez stood quietly in the hallway, watching, heart heavy. He knew this case would stay with them all. Some stories didn't end with perfect closure, just survivors and echoes, and the courage it took to speak through the silence. The funeral was set for Thursday, just 4 days after Cassandra's body was recovered from beneath the kitchen floor. It was a small service, held in the same community church where Anna had been baptized, where Cassandra once sang in the choir. The sanctuary was modest, its stained glass windows casting soft colors across the pews as friends, neighbors, and colleagues trickled in, each bearing a sorrow made heavier by the silence surrounding her death. Anna sat in the front row, her small hands folded in her lap, her legs barely reaching the edge of the seat. She wore a simple black dress and a white headband Cassandra had bought her for Easter. Jordan sat beside her, his posture rigid, face pale. He hadn't slept in days. He barely spoke except to answer direct questions from detectives or social workers. Grief clung to him like smoke-thick, choking, inescapable. As the pastor spoke, recounting Cassandra's generosity, her love for music, her fierce loyalty to her daughter, Anna leaned slightly into her father. For the first time since it all happened, she let herself rest against him, and Jordan gently wrapped his arm around her shoulders. A small gesture, but a bridge beginning to rebuild. After the service, there was a quiet gathering in the fellowship hall. The smell of casseroles and store-bought cookies filled the air, but no one had much appetite. People spoke in hushed tones, offering condolences with damp eyes and uncertain smiles. Detective Saunders stood near the back, watching. She had been invited by Martinez, not as an officer, but as a quiet witness to the aftermath. Saunders never liked funerals. They reminded her too often that justice never came without someone already gone. Teresa Martinez knelt to Anna's level near the dessert table. You holding up okay, sweetheart? Anna nodded, but her voice came barely audible. I don't want people to forget her. They won't, Teresa promised. Your mama made sure of that. Anna's eyes scanned the room. But what if he gets out? What if Uncle Ray lies and says it was just a mistake? Teresa reached over and squeezed her hand. Detective Saunders is making sure the truth stays strong, just like you did. In another corner, Jordan stood speaking to a family friend, an older man named Curtis, who used to work with Cassandra in city planning. We were shocked, Curtis said, shaking his head. She was so careful, so strong. I still can't wrap my head around it. I think she knew something was coming, Jordan said quietly. She changed our wills last month, told me we needed to update custody arrangements, just in case. I didn't think much of it then. You think she knew Ray was dangerous? Jordan didn't answer. He just stared at the floor, his jaw clenched. That night, the house sat dark and locked. A crime scene team had already removed the remaining tiles, cataloged every trace of blood and bleach. But Jordan had been given permission to return briefly to collect clothes for Anna, a few keepsakes. He didn't want to enter, but Anna insisted on going with him. The house felt colder, emptier. Every step echoed. Anna held her father's hand tightly as they moved room to room. Her bedroom looked untouched, still full of dolls and coloring books, but she paused outside the kitchen, staring at the bare concrete where the floor once was. "Can I leave something?" she asked. Jordan hesitated. "What do you mean?" Anna reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, laminated photo of her and Cassandra from a beach trip the summer before. Sand stuck to their cheeks, both smiling wide. "I want to give it to her, so she knows I didn't forget." Jordan knelt, tears in his eyes. "She knows, Anna. She always knew." Still, he let her place the photo gently on the bare spot. She whispered something too soft to hear, then kissed her fingers and touched the ground. They spent the rest of the evening at the Martinez home. Teresa tucked Anna into bed while Jordan met with a court liaison in the dining room. There were custody papers to sign, psychological evaluations to schedule, trauma counseling to arrange. Jordan signed every page without protest. "She's all I've got left," he said, voice raw, "and I'm going to do everything I can to make it right." The next day, Detective Saunders and Barnes met with the district attorney. They laid out the evidence: blood traces, the fire poker with partial prints, Ray's recorded statement, and Anna's clear and consistent testimony. "He's trying to play it as an accident," Barnes explained. "But the cleanup, the concealment, it's murder." The DA nodded. "The child's testimony seals it. I'll move for first degree. We'll argue premeditation." "And Jordan Matthews?" Saunders asked. "We're not charging him. He's a grieving spouse. Misguided trust doesn't make him complicit." That afternoon, Ray Matthews sat alone in his cell. His lawyer had just left, furious. Bail was denied. Trial was imminent. Ray stared at the cement wall, replaying that night again and again, her scream. The moment she hit the counter, the way silence rushed in like a wave. He thought he could bury the truth with the body. He hadn't counted on Anna. Meanwhile, Anna and Jordan visited Cassandra's grave. They brought sunflowers, her favorite. Jordan knelt beside his daughter, hand on her shoulder. "You did something I couldn't," he said. "You saw the truth and stood up for it." Anna didn't reply. She just leaned into him, watching the petals shift in the breeze. Beneath the earth, silence held its place. But above it, justice had begun to speak. The first frost of autumn dusted the grass in front of Riverdale Elementary, making the playground shimmer like a sugar-coated memory. Inside, children filed in with coats too big for their growing arms and backpacks dragging behind them. Laughter filled the halls, footsteps echoed, and for most kids, it was just another Thursday. But not for Anna. She walked silently beside her father down the corridor, her hand tucked tightly into his. Her face was pale, serious in expression, far older than her years. Jordan knelt beside her as they reached the classroom door, his voice gentle. "You sure you want to do this today? We can wait another week." Anna shook her head. "I'm ready." Jordan's heart ached at the firmness in her voice, so similar to Cassandra's when she'd set her mind to something. He kissed her forehead and let her go. The classroom fell quiet when Anna entered. Mrs. Pierce, a kind woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair, offered her a warm smile. "Welcome back, Anna. We missed you." A few kids whispered. One boy stared. Another girl offered Anna a seat next to her with a shy wave. Anna sat down, opened her notebook, and didn't look back. Outside, Jordan stood at the school gates a long while, watching through the glass. The decision to return Anna to school had been difficult. Therapists advised consistency, the resumption of routines, but nothing about Anna's life was routine anymore. He watched as she pulled out her pencil, focused, unmoving, as if willing the day to feel normal again. Back at the precinct, Detective Saunders was preparing for trial. She and Barnes reviewed their witness list, chain of evidence logs, and the growing pile of statements from friends and neighbors. Each interview painted a more complete picture: Ray's resentment, Cassandra's growing suspicion, her plans to expose financial discrepancies in the family business. Barnes tossed a folder onto the desk. This one's from the neighbor, Opal Williams. Said she overheard an argument 2 days before Cassandra died, something about, "You're not going to take everything from me again." Saunders raised a brow. That matches the timing of the floor replacement. He lost control, tried to fix it after the fact. Barnes nodded. "We'll hammer that point home in court. Anna's testimony will carry weight, but the physical evidence and witness corroboration, those are key." Saunders leaned back. "That child. I can't get her out of my head. She saw her world shatter and stood tall through it. Most adults can't do what she did." Meanwhile, Anna's day wore on quietly. At lunch, she sat under the big oak tree, away from the noise of the cafeteria. Her sandwich remained untouched. The breeze tugged at the hem of her skirt as she stared at the sky, lost in thought. A shadow passed over her. It was Mrs. Pierce. "Mind if I sit?" Anna shrugged gently. Mrs. Pierce eased herself down, her knees cracking slightly. "I heard about your mama," she said softly. "She used to come help with the book fair. Always brought muffins." Anna nodded. "Blueberry." She said they were magic muffins. "They were good," Mrs. Pierce agreed. "I want you to know we're proud of you. You did something very brave." Anna lowered her gaze. "I don't feel brave. I feel tired." "That makes sense," Mrs. Pierce said. "Bravery doesn't mean you're not tired. It means you keep going, even when you are." For the first time that day, Anna's lips curved barely. But it was a smile. That evening, Jordan and Anna shared a quiet dinner. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, Cassandra's favorite comfort meal. Jordan tried to keep his tone light, but the room felt heavier without her laughter echoing off the walls. After dinner, Anna pulled out a folder from her backpack. Inside was a hand-drawn picture, her and her mom standing in front of their house, smiling. The kitchen window had a small heart drawn in it. "I want to give this to the judge," she said. Jordan blinked. "The judge?" "For the trial, so they remember who she was." He reached over, touched her hand. "That's beautiful, and I think your mom would love it." At the same time, in the jailhouse visitor room, Ray Matthews sat across from his public defender. The lawyer's tone was sharp. "The DA's offering a deal, 25 to life. You avoid trial, avoid Anna testifying. Take it." Ray's jaw tightened. "And admit to first-degree murder? You confessed to the cleanup. We've got blood evidence, the poker, a child's testimony. That jury's going to convict. You think they'll be lenient because she was your sister?" Ray didn't respond. His eyes were hollow now, no longer defensive, just empty. "I thought I was saving the family," he murmured. "She wanted to tear everything down. She wanted to protect her daughter," the lawyer said. "And now she's the one who'll grow up telling the truth you buried." Outside the jail, the wind picked up. Fall had arrived with finality. Anna stood by her bedroom window, watching the leaves fall. Jordan stepped in, holding the book Cassandra used to read aloud each night, The Giving Tree. He sat beside her on the bed, opened the first page. "Want to read it together?" Anna leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. As he began, his voice shaking slightly, Anna closed her eyes. The house wasn't healed. The wounds were still fresh. But for the first time in weeks, father and daughter breathed in rhythm. And somewhere beyond the silence, Cassandra's love lingered, woven into their voices, their memories, and now, their fight for justice. 3 weeks after the funeral, the leaves had turned brittle, copper and crimson, carpeting the sidewalks like quiet warnings from nature itself. The mornings were colder now, and each one seemed to weigh heavier on Jordan's shoulders. He woke with a sigh, rubbed the sleep from his eyes, and turned to find the other side of the bed empty again. Anna was already downstairs, sitting at the dining table with her notebook open and a stack of crayons beside her. Her rabbit lay nearby, one ear torn slightly but still dearly loved. She was drawing something with slow, deliberate strokes. Jordan approached quietly, coffee mug in hand. "What are you working on?" he asked gently. "A map," she said without looking up. "A map to what?" "To everything that hurts." He froze, heart lurching. She turned the page to show him. Little stick figures, buildings labeled, school, home, court. And at the center, a heart cracked in two. He sat beside her, placing his hand over hers. "Does it help, drawing it?" Anna nodded. "I think it makes it smaller." They sat in silence, letting the moment breathe between them. Later that morning, Jordan drove her to therapy, her third session, at the Child Resilience Center. The building was colorful, designed to make children feel safe. Still, Anna never let go of his hand until they reached the door to Miss Layla's office. Miss Layla was patient, soft-voiced, with eyes that read more than most people ever spoke aloud. She greeted Anna with a warm smile and waved Jordan to the waiting area. Inside, Anna curled into a beanbag chair, rabbit in her lap. "I had a dream," she said without prompt. Mom was singing, but her mouth didn't move. Miss Layla tilted her head. "What did it feel like?" "Like she wanted to tell me something, but the house was too loud, like the walls were shouting." "Did she seem scared?" Anna shook her head. "She was sad, like she didn't want me to be scared anymore." "Do you feel scared now?" Anna hesitated. "I feel watched, like there's still something wrong, but no one else sees it." Miss Layla leaned forward. "Sometimes, when big things happen, our bodies remember even if our brains try to move on. That's not you being broken, that's you being strong." Anna didn't answer. She just pulled her knees closer. Back at the precinct, Detective Saunders was in the evidence room reviewing the finalized case files. The DA had confirmed trial would begin in 4 weeks. Ray Matthews had rejected the plea deal. He wanted a trial, claiming the truth would come out. Saunders scoffed. His version of the truth died the moment he touched that floor. Barnes stepped in with a new folder. "There's more." He dropped it on the table. Inside were banking records, showing Ray had taken out a second mortgage on his own home 2 days before Cassandra's death. He'd been trying to cover a failed investment, gambling on a commercial property that collapsed mid-build. Saunders flipped through the records. He knew he was about to be exposed. Cassandra must have found out. Barnes nodded. "We also found emails." She was going to the police at a meeting scheduled with a financial crimes unit the following Monday. That's why he snapped. "Not just snapped," Barnes said darkly. "Planned. You don't replace a floor and bleach a room unless you're trying to make something disappear." That night, Jordan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, tying his tie with shaking hands. His reflection stared back, older, wearier, unsure. The court hearing tomorrow was preliminary but crucial. He would have to face Ray in person. Worse, Anna might have to speak. He walked into Anna's room to find her packing a small backpack with her rabbit, the drawing of her mother, and the cracked heart map. "You don't have to go," he said softly. "Not yet. You'll only go if they ask." "I want to," Anna said, zipping the bag. "If I don't talk, maybe they'll forget. Maybe he'll lie again." Jordan knelt in front of her. "They won't forget. You already made sure of that." She reached into the side pocket and pulled out the photo she'd placed by the bare kitchen floor weeks ago. It was slightly wrinkled, but intact. "She still needs me," Anna whispered. She couldn't speak, "But I can." The next morning, the courthouse buzzed with quiet tension. Reporters hovered outside, murmurs spreading like smoke through the corridors. Inside, in a courtroom lined with wood panels and sharp corners, Ray Matthews was brought in wearing a gray suit instead of a jumpsuit, this lawyer hoping to humanize him. But nothing softened the way Anna looked at him from the witness bench. She sat with her hands folded, legs swinging just above the floor. When asked if she knew why she was there, she answered, "Because the floor told the truth when no one else would." Gasps echoed lightly across the room. Her voice didn't tremble as she recounted the night she heard the shouting, saw the shadow move across the floor, watched her mother's body disappear beneath tile and lies. Ray never looked at her. Jordan watched, hands clasped tightly. The judge called for recess shortly after Anna finished. Saunders approached them in the hallway. "She did perfectly," Saunders said. "That courtroom just saw what courage looks like." Jordan bent down, kissed his daughter's forehead. "I'm proud of you, more than I've ever been." Anna hugged him. "Do you think she knows?" He swallowed the lump in his throat. "She knows, sweetheart. She always knew." And down the hall, in a room meant for justice, the truth once buried had begun to rise, unafraid, in the voice of a child who refused to be silenced. The courthouse emptied slowly that afternoon, the buzz of Anna's testimony still lingering like the aftershock of a quiet earthquake. Reporters whispered her name under their breath. Courtroom sketch artists furiously added finishing touches to renderings that already captured her small frame, upright and unshaken, under oath. Outside, The air had turned bitterly cold, the sky heavy with late autumn gray. Jordan stood beside the courthouse steps, his coat pulled tight, watching Anna stare up at the stone columns, as if trying to understand what they stood for. She held her rabbit close, the fraying ear clutched in her hand like armor. "You were amazing," he said. She didn't respond immediately. Then, softly, "He didn't look at me once." Jordan glanced back toward the doors. "That says more about him than it does about you." They walked in silence to the car, Anna's footsteps slow, deliberate. As they drove home, she stared out the window, following the blur of trees and distant headlights. Jordan wanted to fill the silence with reassurances, but he knew better now. Sometimes what she needed most wasn't words but to be heard when she chose to speak. When they reached home, Anna went straight to her room, pulling her notebook from her backpack. She began writing again, not drawing this time, but sentences, short lines, observations. The floor didn't lie. My voice found cracks in the silence. He buried her, but the house remembered. Downstairs, Jordan called Saunders. "She okay?" Saunders asked. "She's steady," he said. "Quieter today." But she knew exactly what she wanted to say. "Thank you for preparing her." She did that herself," Saunders replied. "There's something about Anna. She's got a clarity most adults lose. I don't think she even realizes how powerful she is." Jordan leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the space where Cassandra once stood flipping pancakes on Sunday mornings. "I keep thinking, if I'd just looked closer, listened sooner." "You were trying to survive," Saunders said gently. "Grief and manipulation can cloud even the clearest minds." He sighed. "It's not an excuse. She came to me, told me exactly what she saw, and I dismissed her." "She doesn't need a perfect father," Saunders said. "She needs the one who showed up after, and you did." The trial moved faster than expected. With Anna's testimony and the overwhelming evidence, the defense had few options. Still, Ray refused to plead guilty. His legal team tried shifting the narrative, suggesting Cassandra's death was an accident, that panic and fear led to a cover-up, not malice. But every piece of evidence, every timeline, and every word from Anna chipped away at that story. 1 week later, closing arguments began. Jordan and Anna sat in the front row. Anna clutched the same photo of her and Cassandrath Beach, the breeze, the happiness untouched by shadows. The prosecutor stood calmly before the jury. "This is not just about blood and bleach and broken tile," she began. "This is about what happens when control turns into cruelty, when fear of consequences becomes justification for silence. Ray Matthews didn't just kill his sister, he buried her truth, hoping her voice would stay down with her. But he didn't count on the voice of a little girl." She gestured to Anna. "A child who saw what none of us could, who spoke when everyone else remained silent. And that voice, that truth, is why we are here today." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. That evening, as darkness crept into the edges of the city, they returned with a verdict. On the charge of first-degree murder, the foreperson read, "We find the defendant, Raymond Matthews, guilty." A collective breath was released in the courtroom. Jordan squeezed Anna's hand. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just closed her eyes and held the photo tighter. Ray remained stone-faced, unmoving, as the verdict was read. But Jordan saw it, the flicker in his eyes, the moment he realized the lie had reached its limit. Outside the courthouse, news cameras rolled, lights flashing as Saunders gave a brief statement. "This case was never just about one crime," she said. "It was about the strength of one child who refused to let the truth die with her mother." Later that night, back home, Jordan found Anna sitting on the couch in her pajamas, flipping through an old family photo album. Her expression was calm, but her eyes lingered on each page as though memorizing every inch of her mother's face. He sat beside her, folding his hands. "Do you feel better?" he asked. Anna thought for a long moment. "I feel lighter, but I still miss her." Jordan nodded, swallowing hard. "I do too. Every day." She closed the album and leaned against him. "I think she hears us," Anna said quietly. "I think she knows we told the truth." Jordan wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "She knows," he whispered. "She knows you were her voice when no one else could be." And for the first time in weeks, in the quiet comfort of their living room, father and daughter didn't feel haunted but held, by memory, by truth, and by the echo of a love too powerful to bury. The house had grown quieter since the trial ended. Not in the way silence often carried grief, but in a way that made space for breathing again. The floors no longer creaked beneath the weight of secrets, and the room sonce heavy with unspoken tension now held a cautious calm, like walls waiting to trust again. Anna returned to her room one chilly morning and stood in the doorway, staring at the spot where the floor used to carry something else beneath it. The tiles had been replaced not perfectly, but with care. The contractor had offered to redo them for free. After hearing about the case on the news, she knelt down, placed her palm gently on the warm wood. "You don't have to remember the bad anymore," she whispered. "I'll remember for you." Downstairs, Jordan packed her lunch while listening to a podcast, something about childhood trauma and resilience. He didn't used to listen to things like that, but now, every article, every interview, felt like a bridge to understanding her better. To being the kind of father Cassandra would have wanted him to become. Anna came downstairs already dressed, wearing the bracelet her mom had made with little pink and gold beads. "I want to bring cookies to school today," she announced. Jordan blinked. "You baking?" She nodded. "For Mrs. Pierce. She cried when I gave her my poem last week." He smiled softly. "Let's do it this afternoon. I'll pick you up early." At school, Anna was welcomed like someone returning from a voyage. Her classmates, now instructed on how to treat trauma with care, smiled and waved, some even hugging her without a word. She sat quietly through lessons, but when it came time for writing, she filled 3 pages. The prompt was simple. "What does bravery mean to you?" She wrote, "Bravery is when you're small but your voice is big. It's when no one believes you, but you speak anyway. It's when you walk into a courtroom and say what's true, even if the person you love is sitting behind the wrong table. Bravery is being scared and still showing up." Later that afternoon, back home, she and Jordan made cookies in the kitchen. The house filled with the sweet, buttery smell of cinnamon and brown sugar. Jordan watched as Anna carefully spooned dough onto the tray, her movements deliberate, like she was shaping more than just dessert. Between batches, she looked up at him. "Do you think I'll ever stop missing her?" He dried his hands, knelt beside her. "Number. But I think missing someone means they left something good behind." She thought for a second. "Like crumbs?" He laughed through a catch in his throat. "Yeah, like crumbs." That night, as they curled up on the couch, watching old home videos on Jordan's laptop, Cassandra's voice filled the room. "Say mama," the video version of her coaxed, holding baby Anna on her lap. "Mama," baby Anna echoed, jiggling. Jordan chuckled softly. "She played that clip on loop the whole week you said it." Anna didn't laugh. Instead, she stared at the screen. "She had the same eyes as me." "She did," Jordan said. "Same spark, same stubborn fire." They sat in the flickering light of the screen, time folding in on itself, memory and presence dancing like shadows on the walls. Meanwhile, miles away, Ray Matthews sat in a concrete cell with nothing but a steel bed and the ticking of the overhead light. The trial was over, the verdict final. But the silence here was different, unyielding, not heavy with grief, but dense with consequences. He no longer replayed the night in his head. Now he replayed Anna's testimony, the steadiness in her voice, the way she never looked away. He remembered how he used to pat her head, call her kiddo, give her an extra scoop of ice cream when her mom wasn't looking. She had once looked at him with trust, and now, she was the reason the world knew what he'd done. He didn't curse her for it. He cursed himself, for thinking he could hide a storm under tiles and call it peace. Back in their home, Anna lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the rabbit beside her. The wind tapped lightly at the window. The moonlight cut across her floor. "Mom," she whispered, "we're okay now. I promise." Down the hall, Jordan paused outside her room, having heard her voice through the crack. He didn't enter, didn't interrupt. He just placed his hand on the doorframe, closed his eyes, and offered a silent thank you to the woman who'd raised their daughter strong enough to carry the truth even when the world tried to bury it. In the weeks that followed, letters began arriving. One from a teacher in Ohio, who read Anna's story to her class. Another from a woman in Georgia, who left her abusive husband after finding courage in Anna's testimony. And one from a man in Texas who simply wrote, "Thank you for teaching me how to listen to my daughter." Jordan kept them all in a box labeled Voices That Grew. Anna didn't read every letter, but the ones she did, she tucked into her journal with little stars in the corners, like they were maps leading to something she hadn't yet reached. The world didn't forget Cassandra Matthews, not because of headlines or footage, but because of a girl who told the truth when it mattered most. And in the quiet corners of their rebuilt home, Anna's voice still lingered not as an echo of pain, but as a reminder that even the smallest truths, when spoken bravely, could tear through the darkest silence. It had been nearly 2 months since the verdict, and yet, in the quiet spaces of the house, there were still moments when the silence whispered like it had a story left to tell. Anna knew the difference now between silence that comforted and silence that warned. And this was the former, the kind that wrapped around her when she curled into her pillow, or when she laid her hand on the new kitchen floor and remembered where the truth had lived, just beneath. She was writing again, not just in her notebook, but now in letters. Letters she never intended to send, letters to her mom. "Dear Mommy," one began, written in her careful, looping handwriting. "I told the world about what happened. I said it loud and didn't cry. But now when the world is quiet, I miss your whisper more than anything. I want you to know Daddy is trying very hard. He still messes up with the laundry, though." She tucked that letter behind her drawing of the broken heart. The map she had made weeks ago now had new lines, new destinations added in blue marker: hope, bravery, first smile after truth, and where love doesn't leave. Jordan was in the garage, fumbling with boxes that Cassandra had stored years ago. He hadn't been able to bring himself to open them before, not when she was alive, and certainly not right after she was gone. But today, something in him said it was time. As he lifted the lid on one labeled Anna, baby years, a scent drifted upward: baby powder, dried lavender, time preserved in a whisper. Inside were onesies, hospital bracelets, a locket with a picture of Anna's first toothless smile. And then he found a notebook. Cassandra's handwriting covered the pages, soft, cursive, organized by date, the 11th of March. "Jordan still thinks Anna's first word will be Daddy, but I'm determined to win this one. May 4, Anna cried all night. I'm tired, but there's something sacred about this kind of exhaustion. It means she's here, she's ours." The 15th of August. Ray visited today. He's restless. Something's off. I don't trust that new business deal of his. I need to look deeper. Jordan froze at that last entry. He flipped through more pages. Cassandra had written down her suspicions, her observations about Ray's behavior, changes in financial records, hushed phone calls. She had known. She had seen it coming and had tried to prepare. He sat there for a long time, the notebook in his lap, grief rising again, but now shaped with clarity, not the chaos of what if, but the ache of knowing she had tried to protect them both to the very end. That night, he gave the notebook to Saunders. "I don't know if this helps anything legally," he said, "but it's her voice. It should be heard." Saunders took it carefully, flipping through the pages with a reverence she didn't always bring to evidence. "It won't change the verdict, but it validates every word Anna spoke. And more than that, it gives Cassandra her say." In school, Anna had been invited to share a personal story for a special assembly about heroes. When her teacher asked if she wanted to participate, she didn't answer right away. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. "Daddy," she whispered. Jordan stirred. "Yeah? Was Mommy scared that night?" He turned to her, his voice low and steady. "Maybe, but I think she was also brave, because she stayed with you, because she tried to do what was right, even when it was hard." Anna nodded slowly. "I want to tell people that. Not about what Uncle Ray did, but about how Mommy fought quietly, and how she taught me how." The next morning, she stood on the stage in front of the whole school. Her rabbit was in her backpack, her drawing tucked into her pocket like a talisman. "My mom used to say that the strongest people don't always roar. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they just keep standing, even when no one sees." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I learned that being brave isn't about being loud. It's about telling the truth, even when your voice shakes. It's about loving someone enough to protect their story when they can't." The auditorium was silent, not heavy, but still, listening. And when she finished, the applause that followed wasn't thunder-rouse, it was warm, steady, like a heartbeat. After the assembly, her teacher hugged her, eyes misty. "You're going to help a lot of people someday, Anna." Anna smiled softly. Maybe, but I think I already did. That weekend, Jordan took her to the community garden Cassandra used to visit. Anna planted a sunflower there, just one, but it stood tall and bright against the coming winter. As they walked home, she looked up at him. Can we do something every year, to remember her? He squeezed her hand. We'll plant one every spring. And in the quiet spaces between heartbreak and healing, Anna found that not everything buried stayed gone. Some truths grew, some love remained rooted, and some voices, when finally set free, never stopped blooming. Winter settled into the town like an old friend, returning uninvited but expected. Frost clung to the windows in delicate webs each morning, and the smell of wood smoke curled through the neighborhood like memory. Jordan had taken to waking up early, just before the sun peeked over the rooftops, to sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and listen to the stillness. This morning, he wasn't alone. Anna padded into the room wrapped in her flannel robe, her hair tangled from sleep. She didn't say anything at first. She simply climbed onto the chair opposite him and rested her chin in her hands. Could we visit her today? She asked, her voice soft but clear. Jordan set down his mug. The cemetery? Anna nodded. I want to read her something. The sky was still gray when they arrived at the small, quiet graveyard on the edge of town. Cassandra's headstone was simple, just her name, her birth and death dates, and the words, loved beyond measure. Snow dusted the edges of the marble, melting slowly under Anna's breath as she knelt beside it. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and began to read. Dear Mommy, I told them everything, even when it hurt. I told them what you said about being strong and being honest, even when you're scared. And I think I finally understand now you weren't just protecting me. You were teaching me how to stand, even when you're alone. I'm not alone anymore. Daddy listens now. He really does. I miss your voice every day, but I hear it in my heart. And I hope you hear mine too. Love, Anna. She pressed the letter into the soil gently, her glove brushing away a stray leaf. Jordan stood behind her, unable to speak. Instead, he placed his hand on her shoulder and simply stayed there with her, two shadows on the white canvas of winter. Later that week, Detective Saunders visited the school to speak about truth and courage. The principal had requested her personally, inspired by Anna's story and the school's growing interest in emotional education. Saunders was hesitant. She wasn't used to speaking to children, but Anna's courage had stirred something in her. If that little girl could speak the truth in front of a courtroom, surely she could manage a school gymnasium. The assembly was held in the same place where Anna had delivered her own speech. Saunders stood before rows of curious eyes and anxious teachers. She took a breath. There's a saying in law enforcement, facts speak, lies shout. But I've learned recently that sometimes the quietest voice, the one that trembles, the one that changes everything. She told them about Cassandra, about a family that had looked perfect on the outside, and a little girl who saw what no one else would. She didn't use names. She didn't need to. Courage isn't always a grand gesture, she finished. Sometimes, it's a child sitting in a courtroom, looking into the eyes of someone they trusted, and saying, I remember what happened, and I won't pretend it didn't. That's the kind of bravery that makes real change. After the talk, she met Anna in the hallway. The girl had waited, quietly, hands tucked in her jacket. You did good, Anna said, smiling shyly. Saunders chuckled. Coming from you, that means a lot. I'm glad you listened to me that day, Anna said. Saunders knelt so they were eye to eye. I'm glad you didn't let me stop listening. That night, Anna sat in her room under a blanket, her rabbit nestled beside her, listening to a cassette tape she'd found buried in one of her mom's old jewelry boxes. It was Cassandra's voice singing lullabies. The tape crackled, but the melody drifted through the air like candlelight in a dark room. Jordan stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I thought we'd lost that, he said quietly. Anna smiled. It was just hiding. He walked in, sat beside her, and listened. For the first time since the trial, the house didn't just feel safe, it felt full, not of noise, but of memory, of love stretching beyond time. As the tape played on, Anna leaned against her father. Do you think she's proud of us? She asked. Jordan didn't answer right away. He looked around the room at the drawings, the letters, the photos, the life that still bloomed despite everything. I think she's more than proud, he whispered. I think she's at peace. And in the hush that followed, in the warmth of their small, brave home. The echoes of Cassandra's love played on, not haunting, but healing. Not a whisper of loss, but a promise carried forward. January settled in with an icy grip. The snow that dusted rooftops and blanketed sidewalks came down in heavy flurries that seemed to silence the entire town. School was canceled for 3 days, and Jordan worked from home, while Anna took refuge in a blanket fort they had built in the living room. It was made from couch cushions, bed sheets, and a string of old Christmas lights, an enchanted fortress glowing soft orange and pink against the gray window panes. Inside, Anna sat cross-legged, notebook on her lap, her rabbit tucked beneath her arm. She had started something new, something bigger than poems or drawings, a book. It didn't have a title yet, but she had a theme, remembering the truth so others wouldn't forget it. "I want to tell her story," she told Jordan over lunch, but not just the sad part. He looked up from his sandwich. "You mean Mom?" Anna nodded. "I want people to know," she smiled, "that she made the best mac and cheese, that she let me stay up late when there were thunderstorms." Jordan's eyes softened. "She'd like that. She used to say stories make people live longer, even if they're not here." He didn't respond immediately. He simply reached across the table and took her hand. That afternoon, while Anna was reading aloud a chapter she'd drafted, the mail truck slid slightly as it braked outside. Jordan stepped onto the porch to collect the delivery. Among the usual stack of coupons, bills, and newsletters was a large envelope, yellowed around the edges and postmarked months earlier. He froze when he saw the return address: Cassandra Matthews, dated 1 week before her death. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a letter addressed to him, handwritten in her familiar cursive. He sat on the edge of the couch, the page shaking in his hands. "My love, if you're reading this, it means something has happened. I've had this growing feeling in my chest lately, like a whisper I can't quite name. Ray's behavior is off. I'm keeping notes, and I'm being careful. But I wanted you to have this. Please, don't blame yourself. You've always tried to see the best in people. That's one of the reasons I fell for you. But if something does go wrong, promise me you'll listen to Anna. She sees more than people realize. I love you both with everything in me. Please tell her, every chance you get. All my heart, Cass." Jordan read it 3 times before he moved. Tears welled in his eyes, and for the first time in weeks, he let himself break. Cassandra's voice, though written, felt so present it made the room breathe differently. It was as if she had timed her words perfectly, sending love into the space between their healing wounds. He walked over to Anna, who looked up at him curiously. Without a word, he handed her the letter. She read slowly, lips moving soundlessly. When she finished, she held it close to her chest. "She knew," Anna whispered. "She knew I would speak." Jordan sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. "And she knew we'd listen." For days after, the letter remained on the mantel above the fireplace, framed in glass. It wasn't a relic, it was a guidepost. And as Anna continued to write her book, Cassandra's words became the foundation. The next week, the principal invited Jordan and Anna to speak at a district-wide educators' conference about trauma-informed classrooms. Jordan hesitated at first, unsure whether it would be asking too much of his daughter. But when he told her, Anna didn't hesitate. "If it helps teachers hear their students better," she said, "then I want to go." The day of the conference, they stood side by side in a small auditorium, filled with teachers, counselors, and administrators. Jordan opened with a few words about his journey from denial to listening. Then he handed the microphone to Anna. "I used to think adults always knew what was true," she began. "But sometimes, they're scared too. Sometimes they don't know how to hear small voices. That's why we have to keep telling the truth, even when it's small." She spoke about her mother, her uncle, the floor, and the courtroom. But she also spoke about books and poems, and how her teacher had hugged her on the day she cried during math class. "When someone listens," she said, "it makes you braver." Afterward, a line formed educators wanting to thank her, hug her, ask how to do better. Anna listened with the quiet grace of someone who had already walked through more than many of them would ever understand. On the way home, Jordan looked over and asked, "You okay?" Anna smiled faintly. I like helping." That night, back at home, she finished the final page of her story. She titled it, The House That Spoke, and beneath the title, she wrote a dedication. For Mom, who planted the truth, and for Dad, who finally watered it. As the snow thickened outside, father and daughter sat together beneath the same old blanket fort, the world around them quiet. But inside that silence, there was no fear anymore, only warmth, only memory. Only the sound of a new story taking root. The snow had melted into long gray puddles by the curb, leaving behind bare branches and the scent of thawed earth. Spring had not yet fully arrived, but there were Singstony green shoots poking through the ground in the community garden, birds chirping an early rehearsal of their springtime songs. Inside their home, life, too, had softened. It no longer revolved around grief or fear, but around rebuilding and remembering. Jordan had taken time off work, something he never used to allow himself. He spent his mornings helping Anna with her book and his afternoons renovating the old garage into a studio space, something Cassandra once dreamed of. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if each nail driven into the wood was a promise to the past and to their future. One quiet afternoon, Anna came into the garage with a cardboard box in her arms. It was filled with her drawings, letters, and pages from her book. "I think this is the first chapter," she announced. Jordan looked up from where he was sanding down an old bench. "The one you showed your teacher?" Anna shook her head. "A new one, about the day the house stopped being afraid." She handed it to him and sat cross-legged on the floor, brushing sawdust off her jeans. Jordan sat beside her, wiping his hands on a cloth before unfolding the page. She watched as he read, her expression calm but focused. In the chapter, Anna described walking into the house the day after the trial ended. She had felt something strange, and not dread, but breath. The house no longer trembled when she opened the door. It had exhaled, finally. As if it, too, had been holding something in. "It's beautiful," Jordan said, voice hoarse. "It's true," Anna replied. That evening, as dusk settled across the neighborhood, they visited Cassandra's garden plot. The soil was still damp from melted snow. Anna carried a packet of sunflower seeds and a tiny trowel. She knelt beside the spot where last year's flower had stood tall and began to dig. "What if they don't grow this time?" she asked. Jordan knelt beside her. "Then we try again next spring." She looked at him. "Is that what healing is? Trying again?" He smiled softly. "Exactly that." They planted the seeds in silence, the way people pray when they don't need words. Afterward, they sat on the garden bench, their hands still dusty with soil. Jordan watched the sky turn from gold to blue to indigo. "Did I ever tell you about the day your mom found this garden?" he asked. Anna shook her head. She was walking home from work, tired, groceries in one hand, your stroller in the other. You were just a baby. And she saw this plot of land overgrown, wild, but she said something told her it could be more. So she came back the next day and started pulling weeds. Anna's eyes widened. By herself? Every day, for weeks. People thought she was crazy, but she saw something none of us did. Anna looked at the soil, her hands resting on the earth. "Like me with the floor." Jordan turned to her, his heart swelling. Just like that. As the days passed, Anna's book began to take shape. Her teacher helped her edit, Jordan proofread at night, and the local library offered to host a small reading once it was finished. Anna chose the title, What the House Remembered. "It's not just about our house," she explained. "It's about every place that holds a truth, every voice that got quiet but didn't disappear." On the day of the reading, the library was full. Not packed, but full in the way that mattered: family, friends, neighbors, teachers, and strangers who had followed her story through whispers and headlines. Jordan stood in the back, his phone off, his hands clasped. Anna stepped to the front of the room, her book clutched in her hands. She took a deep breath and began. "In some stories, the hero wears a cape. In mine, she wore an apron and sang while folding laundry. She wasn't perfect, but she was powerful, because she loved with her whole heart, and she told the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. And when she couldn't speak anymore, I did." She read 2 chapters, one about the trial, and one about her mom planting marigolds outside the house, whispering to each one like they were old friends. There were tears in the audience, and smiles tooth-kind born from being reminded that hope doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers from a child's lips. After the reading, a woman approached them. She had gray hair and a bright pink scarf. "My daughter is 11, she said. She's quiet, always drawing, always watching. I think she might see more than I do." Anna smiled gently. "Then she's already strong." Back at home, Jordan placed Anna's book next to Cassandra's notebook in a small wooden box on the shelf. It wasn't a shrine, not anymore. It was a legacy, a reminder that love, once spoken, never really fades. As Anna got ready for bed that night, she stood at her window looking out over the quiet street. The moon cast soft light over the garden below. She pressed her hand to the glass. "Good night, Mommy," she whispered. "I finished it." And though there was no voice in reply, the wind picked up gently, brushing against the house in a familiar way. Not cold, not haunting, just present, as if something was saying, "I remember too." Spring fully bloomed in the weeks that followed, brushing the sidewalks with petals and waking the trees in bursts of soft green. Anna's sunflower seedlings pushed through the dirt in Cassandra's garden plot, reaching toward the sky as if remembering the warmth of a mother's touch. The book, What the House Remembered, was more than a personal milestone. After the reading at the library, word had spread beyond their small town. A teacher from a nearby district requested copies. A local therapist group asked to use excerpts in support groups for children. And then, a producer from a regional radio show called Truth Lines reached out. "We'd love to interview Anna," the woman said. Her voice on the phone was kind, clear, reverent. "Just to talk about courage, about storytelling. She doesn't have to discuss the details of the case unless she wants to." Jordan hesitated. "She's only 10. I understand completely. But the way she's been able to turn her pain into something meaningful, we think it could help others." He told Anna that night, unsure of how she'd respond. She sat quietly for a moment, her hands tracing the edge of the book on her lap. "Will I have to talk about Uncle Ray?" "Only if you want to," Jordan said. "They just want to hear your story." Anna nodded slowly. "Then I think I want to." They arrived at the radio studio the following week, tucked into the second floor of an old brick building downtown. Anna wore her blue sweater, the one Cassandra had knitted the winter before everything changed. Jordan sat with her in the green room, holding her hand, neither of them speaking much. When it was time, the producer, a tall woman with silver braids and wide, gentle eyes, led them into the booth. The host was a man named Marcus Linnea, a voice Anna had heard before on their car rides. Warm, thoughtful, the kind of voice that made hard things sound less sharp. "Anna," Marcus said as she settled into the chair, "you don't have to be anyone today except who you already are. That's more than enough." Anna gave a small smile. "Okay." The red light blinked on. The interview began. Marcus opened gently. "You wrote a book called What the House Remembered. Can you tell us why you chose that title?" Anna nodded. "Because our house, it held the truth, even when no one could see it. And I think places remember things, just like people do." Was it hard to write?" "Sometimes. I had to remember things that hurt, but I also got to remember things that made me happy, like my mom singing, or how the light used to come through our kitchen window in the morning. Writing helped me keep her close." Marcus paused, allowing silence to fill the space for a beat. "What would you say to someone listening right now who's holding a secret or feeling unheard?" Anna's voice was quiet but certain. "I'd say, your voice matters, even if it's small. And if someone tells you that what you saw or felt isn't real, that doesn't make it not true. Keep speaking. Someone will hear you. And if you can't say it out loud yet, write it down. The page listens too." There was a long silence in the studio after she finished. The producer wiped her eyes. Even Marcus, usually composed, cleared his throat softly before continuing. "You've changed a lot of hearts already, Anna," he said, "including mine." The interview aired 2 days later. It spread faster than anyone expected. Calls flooded into the station. Emails poured into the library. And the publisher Jordan had timidly reached out to weeks earlier suddenly called with interest. "I think we'd like to help Anna share her voice further," the editor said. "There's something universal in her story, grief. Yes, but also healing and resilience." Jordan looked over at Anna, who was at the kitchen table sketching new cover ideas. "She's ready," he said. That weekend, They hosted a small gathering at the community garden to celebrate. Anna's sunflowers had grown a few inches already. Her classmates came, some with their parents, along with teachers, neighbors, and a few strangers who had become supporters through the radio broadcast. There were cookies, lemonade, and a table where Anna signed copies of her book each one, with a small drawing of a house and a flower beside her name. She spoke softly to each person, listening to their stories, accepting their gratitude with grace that seemed far beyond her age. Near the end of the afternoon, an older woman approached the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed Anna her book to sign. "I lost my sister many years ago," the woman said, "to something very cruel. I never had the words, but hearing how brave you wear it, made me write her a letter, after all these years." Anna looked up at her. "Did it help?" The woman's eyes filled. "More than I expected." Anna smiled and wrote in the book, "To those who carry silence, your voice is still yours." That night, back at home, Jordan tucked her into bed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You did something powerful today," he said. Anna yawned. "I just talked." "Exactly," he whispered. She rolled onto her side, her rabbit pressed against her cheek. As Jordan turned off the light, she called softly, "Dad?" "Yes?" "I think Mom would have liked the garden party." He smiled in the dark. She would have loved it. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees, brushing against the windows like a lullaby. The house listened not with fear, but with pride. It no longer held a secret. Now, it held a legacy. It had been nearly a year since the night Anna had screamed the truth from her trembling lungs. A year since her voice cracked open a secret long buried beneath floorboards and silence. Now, as June crept into the town with humid breath and birdsong, it brought a strange mix of peace and unease. Healing wasn't linear, Jordan had learned that. It circled back when you least expected. It knocked at the door in quiet moments, wearing the scent of something forgotten. That morning, Anna stood in the hallway, facing the room that had once belonged to Cassandra. The door hadn't been shut, exactly, but it hadn't been opened either. It was a boundary line in their healing, an unspoken space filled with clothes still folded, journals half filled, perfume bottles untouched on the dresser. Jordan noticed her staring. He leaned against the opposite wall and asked gently, "Want to go in?" Anna looked up. "I think I'm ready." He nodded once. "Then let's go in together." The door opened with a sigh. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting soft beams onto the wooden floor. The room smelled faintly of lavender and something floral, Cassandra's scent, preserved in linen and air. Anna stepped inside first, slowly, eyes sweeping across the space like it was both sacred and strangely unfamiliar. She touched the edge of the vanity. "She used to sit here and hum." Jordan ran his hand along the bookshelf. "And tell me to stop buying her books because she didn't have time to read all the ones she already had." They moved through the room like explorers uncovering relics. Anna found a scarf still draped on the back of the chair. Jordan opened a drawer and found a stack of Polaroids, Cassandra holding baby Anna, Cassandra laughing at a picnic, Cassandra dancing barefoot in their old kitchen. Anna picked up one photo and studied it. She had paint on her cheeks. Jordan chuckled. That was the day she tried to repaint the bathroom and ended up painting herself more than the walls. They sat on the bed, the Polaroids spread between them like a collage of memory. "Can I keep one?" Anna asked. Jordan handed her the photo of Cassandra laughing, a sunflower behind her ear. "That one's yours." Later that day, Jordan returned to the room alone. He sat at the vanity, staring at his reflection in the mirror she once used. The pane was duller now, not the sharp glass it used to be. But it still pressed in strange places, especially when he thought about all the things left unsaid. He opened the drawer again and found something tucked in the very back, a small, wrapped box. His name was written on top in Cassandra's handwriting. With trembling fingers, he unwrapped it. Inside was a silver chain with a pendant shaped like an open book. Inside the pendant was a tiny photo of Anna as a baby, cradled in Cassandra's arms. There was a note: "For when you feel like you're failing, just look inside. The story we made is still being written." Jordan closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. That night, at dinner, he handed the pendant to Anna. "Your mom wanted you to have this. I think it's time." Anna held it carefully, like it might break. She opened the tiny book and gasped softly. I was so little. She always said you were her favorite chapter. Anna stood and wrapped her arms around him. She's still writing, Dad, through me. In the weeks that followed, they slowly turned Cassandra's room into a study. Not to erase her but to honor her. Her bookshelf remained. Her journals stayed. But now, Anna's art was pinned to the wall. Her stories were stacked beside her mother's poetry. It became a place for reflection, for creation, for remembering. One afternoon, Jordan found Anna sitting in the room, sketching something in her notebook. What are you working on? She turned it around. It was a drawing of their house, but not how it looked now. It was blooming. Flowers grew from the roof. Vines crawled up the sides. Light beamed from the windows. And at the base, near the steps, were two silhouettes in tall, one small planting something in the garden. It's us, she said, helping the house grow back. He knelt beside her, voice thick. It's beautiful, sweetheart. She looked up. Can we hang it here? Of course. They framed it and placed it above the writing desk. The room no longer felt stuck in time. It breathed again, a living tribute rather than a mausoleum. The following weekend, they were invited to speak at the State Children's Mental Health Summit. Anna's story had become part of something bigger: curriculum changes, awareness programs, national conversations. In her speech, Anna stood tall in front of hundreds of adults and said, "My house used to be afraid, but now it's brave, because I told the truth, and because people listened. That's what makes a place safe. Not the walls, but the stories we're allowed to tell inside them." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Not out of politeness, but out of genuine awe. Back home, Anna curled up on the couch beside Jordan, the silver pendant glinting softly in the lamplight. Do you think she's proud of what we've done? Jordan looked at her, heart full. I don't just think she's proud. I think she's guiding us word by word. Outside, the wind carried the scent of honeysuckle. The house stood strong, no longer haunted by silence, but filled with the sound of new beginnings. And as night fell gently over the roof, the story continued, written now by voices once quiet, now unafraid to speak. The doorbell rang on a Sunday morning just after breakfast. The sound startled both Jordan and Anna. Rarely did anyone come by unannounced anymore. The spring light filtered through the kitchen windows as Jordan set down his coffee mug and walked to the door, wiping his hands on a dish towel. When he opened it, he didn't recognize the woman standing there at first. She wore a faded blue jacket, her gray curls pulled back into a neat bun, her eyes a deep brown that shimmered with nerves. "Mr. Matthews?" she asked, her voice weathered but kind. "My name is Diane Whitaker. I knew Cassandra. A long time ago. We worked together at the shelter downtown." Jordan's heart stuttered. He studied her face, searching for memory. Then it clicked: a photo Cassandra had once shown him. Two women laughing behind a stack of donated blankets, their hands dusty from unpacking boxes. He hadn't thought of it in years. "Please," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." Anna appeared from the hallway, holding a small bowl of strawberries. She looked between her father and the visitor. "This is a friend of your mom's," Jordan explained gently. "From before." Diane stepped inside, her gaze moving slowly over the space. "It still smells like her," she murmured. "Lavender and cinnamon." They sat in the living room, Anna curled beside Jordan, eyes wide with curiosity. Diane clutched her bag on her lap, knuckles pale. "I didn't come to intrude," she said. "But I heard the interview, the one on Truth Lines, and when I heard Anna's voice, I knew it was time." Jordan leaned forward. "Time for what?" Diane opened her bag and pulled out a stack of letters. Some were yellowed with age, others more recent. She handed the bundle to Jordan. "These are from Cassandra. Over the years, she wrote me, especially after she left the shelter. She was worried. About Ray." Jordan froze. "She told you?" "Not everything," Diane said, her voice shaking, "but enough. She said she didn't feel safe confronting him yet. That she needed to gather proof. She didn't want to involve the police until she was sure. I told her to be careful. She always was. But I think she knew something might happen." Anna looked up. "Why didn't she tell Daddy?" Diane's eyes filled with sorrow. Because she was trying to protect both of you. She didn't want him to carry that fear, and she hoped maybe she was wrong. Jordan held the letters like relics. His throat tightened. Why now? Because your daughter spoke a truth that shattered silence, Diane said, looking at Anna. And I thought you both deserved to hear what Cassandra had been fighting for. They read the letters that evening, seated at the kitchen table, the room quiet except for the soft turning of pages. Cassandra's words were careful but firm. She described noticing missing funds from a shared family account Ray had helped manage. She spoke of overhearing strange phone calls, of documents she tried to copy but lost when Ray came over unexpectedly. In one letter she wrote, I don't know how much longer I can pretend everything's fine, but I have to. For Anna, for Jordan. He believes Ray is just loud and misguided, but I think there's more, something dark. Jordan pressed his fingers to his lips, guilt coiled tight in his chest. She knew, and I didn't see it. Anna placed her hand over his. But you see it now. He met her gaze. I just wish I had sooner. Anna turned one of the letters over. She wasn't mad. I can feel it in her words. She forgave you before you even needed it. In the weeks that followed, Diane became a quiet presence in their lives. She brought stories of Cassandra's early days at the shelter, of her stubbornness and compassion. She helped Anna add a chapter to the book, a chapter about her mom before she was a wife or mother. A chapter that painted her not just as a victim, but as a warrior. It's important people see all of her, Diane said one afternoon, brushing a tear from her cheek. Not just what was done to her, but what she did for others. Anna titled the chapter The Courage Before the Storm. Jordan, inspired by Cassandra's letters, began writing, too, not a book, just memories. Little notes he tucked into a box labeled, for later, for Anna's high school graduation, her first heartbreak, her wedding day, if it ever came. He was building a future library, words laid down like stepping stones. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Anna stood at the edge of the garden, holding a new packet of seeds. Sunflowers again? Jordan asked, stepping beside her. Anna shook her head. Lavender. I want the whole yard to smell like her. He smiled. She would have loved that. They planted together, hands in the earth, laughter echoing off the fence. And as the sky turned from gold to lavender itself, Anna looked up and whispered, Thank you for helping me see her again, Daddy. Jordan wrapped his arm around her shoulder. Thank you for showing me how. In the quiet that followed, they didn't need words. The wind moved through the trees like breath. The house stood steady, and the past once heavy, once hidden had finally found its place. Not buried, not haunting, but held. It was a warm June afternoon when the phone call came. Jordan had just finished watering the new lavender plants. Anna insisted on planting in front of the porch. He wiped sweat from his brow and picked up the phone without checking the caller ID. Mr. Matthews, this is Sarah from the District Victims Advocacy Board. We've reviewed your late wife's documentation, including the letters you submitted and the impact statements from your daughter's book and interviews. I'm calling to let you know. Cassandra has been approved for inclusion in the Memorial for Victims of Silent Injustice. Jordan didn't speak at first. The words settled into him like a soft wave. He gripped the edge of the sink, heart tight in his chest. Thank you, he managed. She will be honored with a plaque in the garden next month. We'll send details, Sarah added gently. It's long overdue. He stood in the kitchen long after the call ended, just breathing. Cassandra, her name, not as a whisper, not as a ghost, but as a legacy, carved into stone so others would remember not just how she was lost, but who she was. Anna was sitting on the front steps with her sketch pad when he told her. They're putting her name in the memorial, he said. Anna blinked. For real? For real. She hugged her knees to her chest. Do you think that means people will really listen now? Jordan sat beside her. They're already listening, Anna, because you spoke. The memorial was scheduled for the 15th of July, a date that felt like a second birthday for Cassandra. Anna asked if she could write something to be read at the ceremony. Jordan agreed without hesitation. In the following days, their house buzzed with quiet activity. Diane helped Anna pick out a simple white dress. Jordan found a picture of Cassandra smiling on the beach, her hair tangled by wind, laughter caught mid-motion. They had it printed in black and white, framed in oak. The night before the ceremony, Anna couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, rewriting her speech again and again. Jordan peeked in around midnight and found her rubbing her eyes. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I just want it to be right." He walked in and kissed the top of her head. "Anything that comes from your heart is already right." Anna smiled, and for the first time that night, set her pencil down. The ceremony took place in a quiet park near the courthouse. A long stone wall curved around a garden bed filled with roses and sage. Dozens of names were etched into the granite names of those who had suffered behind closed doors, who weren't believed, who had no chance to speak. Now, they stood beside one another, witnessed, remembered. Jordan held Anna's hand as they approached the podium. The audience was small but sincere advocates, survivors, lawmakers, and families like theirs. Anna stepped up. Her voice carried steady through the summer breeze. "My mom wasn't just someone bad things happened to. She was someone who did good things for others, even when she was scared. She helped at the shelter. She planted flowers where weeds grew. She taught me to tell the truth, even when people don't want to hear it. I miss her every day, but I know she's still teaching me. And now her name will teach other people too." A hush followed. Some people cried. Others stood still, letting the words settle in their chest. Then, a volunteer unveiled the latest plaque. Anna walked forward with Jordan and Diane. There, etched in clean, strong letters, was the name Cassandra D. Matthews, 1979, 2024. Beloved mother, fierce advocate, forever remembered. Anna reached out and traced the letters with her finger. The granite was warm from the sun. "She's not just under a headstone now," Anna whispered. "She's in stone people will see when they're alive." Later, as people mingled, several approached Anna Soames sharing stories of their own, others thanking her for her courage. A quiet woman with silver rings on every finger pressed a small card into her hand. "My daughter read your book in her support group," she said. "It helped her find the words she couldn't say out loud." Anna looked at the card. On it were 3 simple words: "You are heard." That night, they returned home exhausted but light. The garden smelled like lavender, and the stars blinked gently above. Jordan tucked Anna in, then stood at her door, hesitant. "Do you think," he asked softly, "we could maybe plant something new tomorrow?" Anna opened one eye. "Like what?" "I was thinking a tree," he said. "Something that keeps growing, something strong." She smiled sleepily. "Like Mom." He nodded. "Exactly like Mom." In the early morning hours, when the world was still dark and silent, Jordan walked into Cassandra's room-turned-study. He lit the candle she used to keep by her journal and sat down. He opened a blank notebook, and he began to write. "Today, your name became more than a memory. It became a marker of truth. You always believed the smallest voices could carry the biggest truths. You were right. Anna proved that. And now I carry your name not in silence, but with every breath. Thank you for never giving up, even when it hurt. You built something with your love that no one can ever bury again." Outside, the first light of dawn brushed the sky, and the house, once weighed down by unspoken sorrow, stood tall, alive with memory, growing toward the sun. The following morning arrived with the soft rustle of summer wind and the scent of soil warming beneath a clear sky. Jordan stood by the back porch with a spade in his hand, the box of saplings resting beside him. The one he chose for planting was a red maple, Cassandra's favorite tree. She'd once told him it reminded her of childhood autumns and the strength of things that let go only to bloom again. Anna came outside carrying a small silver tag she'd made in art class. It read, "Cassandra's tree still growing." Her handwriting, once shaky and unsure, now curved across the metal with confidence. "Ready?" she asked. "Always," Jordan replied, motioning to the spot they had picked together. They dug side by side, the sun warm on their backs, sweat beading across Jordan's brow, dirt clinging to Anna's fingers. She didn't mind. She was quiet as they worked, focused, gentle. When the hole was deep enough, they set the tree in its new home, steadying the roots, then filled in the soil. "Think it'll grow tall?" Anna asked, stepping back. Jordan looked up at the sky, then down at the thin stem, green and full of promise. "Taller than the house one day, maybe." Anna smiled, then pressed the silver tag into the soil at its base. They stood together, hands dirty, hearts clean. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, as if in approval. Later that day, Diane stopped by with a manila envelope. She'd been working quietly in the background, collecting names and information for a new initiative inspired by Cassandra and Anna's story one that would support victims' families through post-trial recovery. "It's going to be called the Matthews Fund," she said, placing the envelope on the kitchen table. "We're launching it next spring. Scholarships for children, therapy grants, support for single parents, all in Cassandra's name." Jordan sat down slowly. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Diane said gently. "You've already said it, through every step you've taken since that night." Anna came over, her curiosity piqued. "Will other kids get to write books too?" Diane laughed. "I hope so, and draw, and sing, whatever helps them speak their truth." Anna thought for a moment. "Can I help? Like, talk to them?" Diane looked at Jordan, who nodded. "You can be our first youth ambassador," Diane said with a wink. The news traveled quickly. The local paper ran a full article on the fund, accompanied by a photo of Anna beside the new tree. The headline read, "What one girl's voice planted." People began to donate, not just money, but time, services, letters of encouragement. One evening, while organizing the letters that had come in, Jordan found one from a woman in Montana. Her sister had experienced abuse but had never spoken out. After hearing Anna's story on the radio, she said, "I finally sat with her and said, 'You don't have to hold it all alone.' And she cried, for the first time in years. Thank you for teaching me to listen." Jordan handed the letter to Anna as she sat curled up with her sketchpad. Her eyes moved across the words, slow and wide. "She listened because we did," Anna said. "Mom's still helping people. Every Sunday, they made it a ritual to walk to the tree. Sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. They brought lavender tea in a thermos and sat beneath its growing branches. Anna would read, Jordan would sketch in the notebook he'd started. And together, they found a rhythm that no longer felt like surviving but like living. One morning in August, Anna woke Jordan before sunrise. "Come on," she whispered, tugging his hand. Still half asleep, he followed her outside. The sky was deep blue, slowly blushing orange at the horizon. They walked quietly, hand in hand, to Cassandra's tree. Anna set down a folded paper beneath it. "What's that?" Jordan asked. "It's a poem," she said. "The last chapter of my book." He raised an eyebrow. "I thought you already finished it." "I did, but this one's for just us, and her." They sat beneath the tree as the sun rose, light spilling like honey across the garden. Anna began to read. "Some truths grow roots, unseen but deep. Some memories don't rest, they keep. She whispered strength when I was small. Now in this place, I hear it all. The world once dark now sings with light, because we chose to speak, to write. She's not just Gona, she's planted here, in every voice that speaks from fear." Jordan didn't say a word. He just held her hand as the poem echoed between them. By the time the sun was high, neighbors passed by with nods, and one woman paused to tie a small yellow ribbon around the tree's trunk. "For Cassandra," she whispered, "and the ones we still need to hear." Anna watched the ribbon flutter in the breeze. "It's working," she said. "What is?" Jordan asked. "The truth. It's spreading." He looked at her, this little girl who had cracked open silence with her small but powerful voice. "Yes," he said softly. "It is." And as they sat beneath that tree rooted in memory, reaching for the sky, they knew this was more than healing. It was legacy. It was the story they were still writing. Together, as the seasons edged toward fall, leaves began to blush red and gold, whispering down from the trees as if honoring what had finally come into light. Life for Jordan and Anna had settled into a rhythm still touched by grief, but now also lit with purpose. Yet one chapter remained unfinished, the trial of Raymond Matthews. After months of investigations, statements, evidence analysis, and emotional preparation, the court date was finally set, the 21st of September. Almost exactly 1 year after Anna first screamed the truth that shattered everything. Jordan hadn't spoken to Raymond since the arrest. The man was being held without bail. Thanks to the evidence, the forensics team had unearthed chemical traces beneath the floorboards. the inconsistencies in his initial police statements, and the old emails Cassandra had saved in a private drive. It was enough to bring everything to court. Anna had not been required to testify, something both her father and her therapist had advocated for, but she wanted to be there. Not to relive it, but to witness it. "I need to see it end," she told Jordan. "I need to look at him and know he doesn't get to hold the last word." Jordan didn't argue. She had earned her voice. She had fought for her truth. She deserved to see justice unfold. They arrived at the courthouse that morning dressed in quiet tones. Anna wore a navy dress with a sunflower pin on her collar. Jordan wore his best suit and carried Cassandra's pendant in his pocket. The courtroom was smaller than they'd imagined, almost intimate. Rows of benches lined with community members, legal aides, and a few media representatives. The prosecution team, two sharp, resolute attorneys, nodded at Jordan and Anna as they took their seats. Then Raymond was brought in. He looked older than Jordan remembered, thinner, with a nervous twitch in his jaw. His hands were shackled, his suit ill-fitting. He didn't look at them, not even once. The opening arguments began. The prosecutor, a woman named Marla Green, laid out the timeline with precision. "This is not a case of sudden rage," she said. "This is a case of deliberate erasure. A man who silenced a woman because she threatened the power he thought he deserved." The defense tried to cast doubt, suggesting Cassandra's disappearance was voluntary, even implying she may have staged it. But the evidence was relentless. The email trail, the banking irregularities, and the most damning DNA samples recovered beneath the flooring, matching both Cassandra and the accused. Jordan listened with fists clenched. Every word was a blade and a balm, a reopening of wounds, and a stitch. Then came the witnesses. Diane testified about Cassandra's letters, her fears, the attempts to gather evidence. The forensic specialist walked through the chemical findings, the bleach and ammonia embedded deep in the wood grain. Anna's teacher recounted the day she found the little girl screaming in the classroom, her face pale, her hands shaking. But it wasn't until Jordan took the stand that the courtroom truly quieted. He stood, steady but worn. The courtroom lights caught the gray in his beard, the weight in his posture. "I believed my brother," he said, "more than I believed my daughter. And that is something I will carry with me forever. Cassandra was my wife, my partner. I didn't want to think something like this could happen in my family. But love doesn't mean blindness. And silence doesn't mean innocence." He looked over at Anna, sitting just beyond the railing. "She saw everything," he continued, "and I dismissed her. I failed her, but she never stopped telling the truth. Because of her, we found Cassandra. Because of her, we're here." His voice cracked, just slightly. "I will never forgive myself for what I didn't hear. But I will spend the rest of my life making sure others are heard." When he stepped down, Anna stood as he walked back and took his hand. They didn't need words. The warmth between them said enough. The final arguments came the next day. The prosecution drove it home. This man believed he could hide his crime beneath floorboards. But truth has a way of growing, of pushing up through the cracks. It found a voice in a child he underestimated. It found a path in a justice system he hoped would ignore it. The jury took only 5 hours. When they returned, the tension in the room was electric. Raymond sat rigid, his eyes unfocused. On the charge of second-degree murder, the foreperson read, "We find the defendant guilty." A breath exhaled across the room. Some gasped. Others nodded solemnly. Anna didn't cry. She simply leaned against Jordan, closed her eyes, and whispered, "She can rest now." Raymond was sentenced 2 weeks later, 35 years, with no possibility of parole for 20. It wasn't closure, but it was something like justice. After the trial, as they stood on the courthouse steps beneath a pale blue sky, reporters surged forward, microphones extended. Jordan held up his hand and spoke clearly. "This case is not just about what one man did. It's about what one girl refused to let stay hidden." Her voice changed everything. "And if you remember anything from this trial, remember her name." He turned to Anna. "Remember Anna Matthews." That evening, they returned home to a quiet house. Cassandra's tree stood in the back, taller now, bending slightly in the late summer breeze. Anna walked to it alone, placed her hand on the bark, and whispered, "It's done." The wind answered gently, leaves rustling like a mother's soft applause. The house no longer carried the weight of buried secrets. It carried the memory of a battle fought and, not with vengeance, but with truth. And as stars blinked alive above them, Jordan and Anna stood in the garden, beneath a name that had found its place in the world. Still growing, still guiding, still hers. Autumn came in a slow hush, painting the streets in gold and amber, as if nature itself wanted to remember. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Jordan and Anna lived without tension clinging to every breath. The trial was behind them, justice had spoken, and the echo of silence that once haunted their home had been replaced with something fuller, something almost melodic. Anna's school returned to a familiar rhythm, though the way teachers looked at her had changed. No longer the girl who screamed in confusion, she had become the girl who was heard. The girl who changed everything. Her classmates were gentler to some with understanding, some with awe, others with quiet respect. Even the hallways seemed different, like the walls themselves knew they'd once carried a voice that refused to be buried. One day in English class, her teacher, Mrs. Daly, handed her a slip of paper. "The State Student Literary Conference is in 3 weeks," she said, her voice low but warm. "They'd like you to speak, not just about your book, but your journey. They read your poem from the memorial. You moved them." Anna read the invitation. Her stomach fluttered, but it wasn't fear, it was purpose. That night, she told Jordan over dinner. He looked up from his plate. "Are you nervous?" Anna thought for a moment. "A little, but I want to do it." You're not just telling your story anymore," Jordan said. "You're carrying others too. That's not small." Anna smiled. Neither was Mom. Jordan looked away, blinking faster than normal. They spent the following weeks preparing. Jordan helped her rehearse in the living room. Diane came by with breathing tips she'd learned from theater friends. Even their neighbor, Mrs. Harold, who'd once baked for Cassandra's book club, stitched a blazer for Anna to wear on stage. "You're carrying history," she said. "Might as well look like it." The day of the conference, the auditorium was filled with hundreds of people, students, teachers, counselors, and guests from community organizations. Anna stood backstage, blazer buttoned, hands gripping the speech she had rewritten 3 times the night before. Jordan squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect. Just be honest." She nodded. When her name was called, she walked on stage, the spotlight washing over her. For a brief moment, the room disappeared. Then she found one familiar face in the crowd, Jordan. Seated front row, holding the silver pendant between his fingersands, she breathed. "My name is Anna Matthews," she began, her voice steady. "I used to be afraid of telling the truth, not because I didn't believe it, but because I was scared no one else would. But when I said my mother wasn't gone, when I screamed that she was still under the floorboards, I wasn't just saving her memory. I was saving myself." Gasps fluttered through the crowd, but Anna pressed on. "Some truths are too heavy to carry alone, and some silences are louder than screams. I'm here to tell you that speaking doesn't make you weak. It makes you whole. My mom didn't get to finish her story, but I'm here to finish it for her." A beat, then thunderous applause. Afterward, a line of students formed to thank her. One boy, tall and quiet, pressed a note into her hand without speaking. Later, when she unfolded it, she read, "You helped me realize I wasn't crazy. Thank you for being brave first." They drove home in silence, but it was a soft kind, the kind filled with meaning. As the holidays approached, Jordan had an idea. What if we held a gathering? For people like us. People who made it through something dark. Anna lit up. Like a remembrance night? Exactly, he said. Candles, music, stories. They called it Roots and Light. On the 10th of December, neighbors, survivors, teachers, even some members of the advocacy board gathered in their backyard. Beneath the branches of Cassandra's trino adorned with twinkling lights and paper stars, they shared poems, sang hymns, and read names aloud. Names of those lost, names of those found, names of those still searching. When it was Anna's turn, she held up a photo of Cassandra. "She taught me to listen, even when the world didn't." A hush followed, one of reverence, one of connection. Later that night, as guests drifted home and the fire pit dimmed, Anna sat beside the tree. Jordan joined her with 2 mugs of cocoa. "She would have loved tonight," he said. "She was here," Anna replied. "I felt her. Jordan looked at the tree. Funny how roots grow the strongest in the dark. Anna leaned her head on his shoulder. And how they keep growing. Even after the storm, above them, the tree rustled gently, its branches a lullaby in the cold. And though Cassandra was gone, the life she planted flourished in stories, in names, in daughters who would never again be afraid to speak. The silence had been broken, and in its place, a forest was beginning to rise. The story of Anna Matthews teaches us that truth, no matter how small or fragile it may seem, carries the power to break through silence and bring justice to light. It reminds us that even a child's voice, brave and unwavering, can challenge the weight of denial and reveal hidden wrongs. Most of all, it shows that healing begins when we choose to listen, to believe, and to stand with those who dare to speak. From pain grew strength, and from silence grew legacy.